Alright, I got all the stuff I need to reassemble the Pawn Shop 51 again. So this time I went out, got a proper American-made, I presume, a telly neck. This has got the tall frets on it, so they're sort of more narrow than you would typically get, like with an extra jumbo, and they're taller, which is interesting. Here's the neck that I originally got from my Pawn Shop 51. And it is 22 frets, but it is a one-piece neck. This is Mighty Might. So this is one piece with a proper skunk stripe in the back, and then you can tell up close here that that was routed out and not a glued-on fingerboard, because there's no sort of like interruption in the grain. There we go. Also easy to see at this end. Whoops. You've got nice uninterrupted wood grain at this end. So this guitar's got the same thing going on, but the headstock, or the truss rod adjustment is at the heel and not at this end. So I kind of like having that. I don't know, it's just an old-fashioned looking feature. There's your truss rod adjustment. I've never had a guitar with a truss rod adjustment at the heel, so this will be interesting. Got just your basic nut. It's slotted, but it's not properly cut, so I have the files. I'll just have to cut the nut properly. And here's my favorite feature of this thing. Look how fat that is. So by way of comparison, there's your sort of standard C-shaped guitar neck. I don't remember what the dimensions are, but I'm thinking it's like 75 or 81, like 0.75 or 0.81 inches thick, and this is basically a full inch. Like, it comes down a bit here, but it's basically flat all the way across. It feels like a baseball bat. It's gonna be awesome. So and my other favorite feature is I got these proper sexy tuners. These are awesome. So these are the split head tuners, just like the vintage tuners, but they are sealed. So these are really nice, and I didn't get these cheap. These are I paid proper money for these. I mean, not a huge amount, but like $50. So these are decent, proper tuners. I'm gonna be very, very pleased once I get this thing together. And tongue oil. So we're gonna go with a proper like oil finish. This doesn't have any varnish or anything in it. This is no thinners. This is just proper, pure tongue oil. Actually, it might have thinners because it's flammable, but it's not poisonous. So it's not like that Minwax stuff. Got the fingerboard completely covered in tape, nicely secure, and I've covered all of the frets with some black marker. Now, this is a 9.5-inch radius block, and if this is a 9.5-inch radius neck, then I should see, oh, and I've straightened it already, so I should see pretty even sanding all the way down. And I do. The shoulders seem to, like the fret shoulders, I mean. Well, they look good, actually. Not seeing any low spots at all. And there's a tiny one there. Maybe right there, but I mean, it's still getting a nice clean contact. These look really good. So let's, I think we can move directly on to the crowning stage. On closer inspection, the only thing I'm seeing cleaned up, like in terms of marker worn off of these frets, is a hairline, which means these are perfectly or reasonably well crowned. I don't even need to crown them, really. So this is what a store-bought crowning file looks like. It's got a concave strip that's perfectly straight, and in this case 300 grit, and this is again 300 grit, just a different radius, slightly bigger. Now, I don't need 300 grit because I don't need to do any coarse filing on these frets. They're really in good shape. They're level already and very well crowned, and they look perfectly round to me. So, what I have is this. This is my handmade version. Link to that video is there. But what it is a concave strip. This was done with a drill bit, and then I've pressed in some 1000 grit paper. Now, I'm just putting a little marker on here for demonstration. But once you have this thing set up, you just drag it across. Oops, wasn't centered. Drag it across the fret, and you want to see that it takes the ink off evenly without leaving a big wide black line. It's actually taking it off evenly all the way across. So there isn't a flat spot of any significance on these frets. I'm super impressed with this company. I think I will go to them again for my next guitar neck. So these are great, but I didn't know that I didn't have any fret work to do on this. You have to check. That's the whole point. So I'm just going to do the rest of the work in cleaning these up. I use a Dremel and a polishing compound to clean them up. And then this thing needs a nut and tuners, and that's it. We're ready to rock. This neck was money well spent. Very close to fitting. Just gotta take a little bit more off of it. Then I'll polish it smooth with the 1000 grit there. And look at that. I think that's it. Alright, I'll hammer that in a sec. And we also need to narrow the nut. So I'm probably going to favor spacing on the high string side rather than the low. So maybe like that. That looks good. Come on. Oof! Stuff smells like pee. This is deer bone, but it smells like a peed mattress, which you would know if you've ever been to a summer camp. I think just a dab of white glue will do. There. That's quite a bit I gotta cut off. This side's good, but that's gotta go. Get in there. Nice. Not sure how obvious it is, but there's a slight slant to the top surface of this nut. You can see it there. Now that's a reasonable angle to do the nut slots at. Obviously you can't do them straight because that's not going to work for you, but you also don't want them to be too sharp because that'll kink the string. So you want it to be an angle that's halfway in between, perfectly straight along the fingerboard and pointing directly at the tuners. So I sort of find an angle that works for each one, and this blade is pretty thin, but it would basically work for all of the 3 upper strings. And you'll notice there, if I just sort of try and push it into the existing slot, that's way too high. I should be going for something that is more like 1.5 millimeters, and whatever that works out to in inches. But I find an angle that I like, I set my fingers against the fingerboard, and then start sawing against it by pushing down against the nut, but keeping my fingers fixed on the fingerboard, and use short strokes, and then tilt the blade back and forth just a bit on these upper ones, just to create a little bit of room. Plus, I can also use this handy little contraption, which has a whole bunch of these little tiny round files, which are for cleaning out welding tips. And they have various sizes, including one that's good for high guitar strings. These are perfectly round. This is going to give me a square hole for the string to go through, which is going to create 3 contact points. Ideally, you'd have something that's octagonal shape, but only the files that I have for the larger strings sort of have a nice profile for cutting string gauges. They also make tools specifically for cutting nut slots. Alright, so here she is. She's all finished. The only thing I'm going to change are these tuners, these Clue Zone ones. Turned out to be fakes. That's kind of disappointing, but I bought them a year ago, and if I was going to return them, I should have checked them out right away. I just assumed they'd be real. Or maybe Clue Zones are crap, I don't know. But this, the low E, for example, has like a quarter turn of slack in it, so that's garbage. But otherwise, this is a great guitar. So this is a made in Japan Fender, and the only thing I might change on it, I haven't really made up my mind to do it or not, is this switch. So the rotary switch, I don't really like the action of it. But anyway, that's something I'm going to change possibly later for a blend pot, or I'll just use the blend pot on my next project and keep this thing as it is. A little more original. It's certainly less work to leave the wiring set up the way it is. So anyway, thanks for watching, and the next project coming up is going to be like a 5150 or EVH art kind of a project. So that's going to be cool. See you in the next one. Thanks.